Hello and welcome to Sleepy Scientist. I'm glad you're here, whether you've had a long day, a busy mind, or you simply love falling asleep to the sound of science. Tonight we drift across a vast and moonlit ocean, quiet and seemingly endless until something strange begins to stir beneath the surface. There's no splash, no crash, just a faint plume of steam curling up through the night air, delicate as breath on glass. A signal, a whisper, the beginning of something extraordinary. Imagine floating above a patch of deep sea that looks no different from any other part of the ocean, until a tendril of warmth rises through the dark, followed by another. You look down. The water begins to ripple softly at first, as if the ocean is stretching in its sleep. Then comes the faintest shimmer of light from below, a pale ghostly glow you could easily mistake for moonlight. But the moon is behind you. What you're seeing is the first visible exhale of an undersea volcano. You hover just above the water's surface now, still and weightless, and you watch as the glow intensifies. Steam hisses up through cracks you can't see. The temperature here just below the surface is rising degree by degree. A slow simmer. Have you ever wondered what the Earth feels like when it begins to make something new? Not just waves or wind, but land. This is how it begins. Not with a bang, but with a sigh. A warm breath rising from the depths. The volcano is not new. In fact, it's been there for ages, resting, swelling, growing heavy in its chamber of molten stone. It has waited quietly beneath thousands of meters of water, its peaks hidden beneath oceanic hush. You wouldn't have known it was there unless you felt the heat beneath your boat, or saw, as you do now, the first cough of sulphurous mist escaping into the air. The smell of minerals sharpens around you like hot springs mixed with salt. The sea swells gently unevenly. The water is not angry, just curious. It trembles. Deep below the Earth's crust has cracked just enough to let magma begin its ascent. And magma has a personality of its own. It creeps at first thick and syrupy, rising from the mantle like honey warmed in a dark kitchen. Then it rushes in pulses, triggered by pressure gas and ancient fault lines shifting like tired bones. You might imagine the volcano like a heart-pressurized rhythmic driven by pulses. Or maybe like lungs expanding with gas and exhaling steam and rock. Whatever image you choose, one thing becomes clear. It's not still. It's not silent. It's coming alive. You float higher for a better view. From this height, you see the water's surface begin to break, not with splashes, but with floating debris. Little fragments of newly born rock bob upward, like pebbles tossed into a pond and then reversed. They shimmer fresh from the heat, glistening in the starlight. You might wonder, is it dangerous? Not right now. Tonight the volcano is in its earliest phase, a painter dabbing color on an invisible canvas. You're witnessing creation, not destruction. Still, you feel the weight of it. This is the kind of moment few people get to see. The ocean, the most powerful sculptor of them all, is about to be challenged by something from within the earth itself. It's like watching a dream solidify into shape. The heat rises steadily now, not boiling, just enough to prickle your skin. And the sound, there it is. A muffled growl from beneath. Soft, slow, like a purr from a cat curled deep in the bedrock. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sensation wash over you, warm sea mist on your cheeks. The tang of minerals in the air, the distant whisper of tectonic movement miles below. You're not worried. You're entranced. And as you drift just slightly closer to that ribbon of steam rising into the stars, you feel it fully. The Earth is making something new, something that wasn't there yesterday, something that could change everything. If you enjoy these sleepy explorations, I'd be so grateful if you gave the video a little like and tap that subscribe button. It helps more sleepy scientists like you find their way here, and it means I can keep making more of these journeys for you now. You drift a little lower now, letting the surface of the ocean brush your fingertips like a velvet curtain gently parting. Below, the water darkens not with night, but with depth. And in that depth, something stirs. Beneath the plume of steam rising into the cool air is a world hidden from human eyes. We often imagine the ocean floor as flat and forgotten, but the seabed is anything but static. It's alive. It breathes in silence. And right now, it pulses with rising heat. You pass through the surface, letting yourself sink slowly, gently into the twilight of the sea. Sunlight fades rapidly as you descend. Reds disappear first, then oranges, then yellows. Soon, only a soft bluish hue remains, a quiet kind of light that feels like it's been asleep for centuries. As you near the seafloor, it's not darkness that welcomes you. It's glow. A faint, eerie light emerges from cracks in the ocean crust, hydrothermal vents, like underwater chimneys, breathing warmth and minerals into the cold deep. They gurgle and hiss, scattering shimmering clouds of hydrogen sulfide and iron. Around them, strange life clings, life that doesn't need sunlight, that thrives on chemistry alone. Tube worms long and ghost-white sway like underwater dancers. They have no mouths, no stomachs. Instead, they absorb nutrients directly from the minerals pouring out of the Earth's cracks, thanks to bacteria living inside them. Nearby, tiny shrimp scuttle through clouds of heat. Their shells reflect the glow like tiny underwater lanterns. It's peaceful here despite the constant rising heat. Nothing panics, nothing rushes. The creatures here have known fire beneath water for eons. This is their garden, their cradle. The seabed begins to rise in slow, uneven lumps, soft bulges of cooled lava called pillow basalts formed when magma touches seawater and hardens in smooth, rounded shapes. These pillows stack quietly, building layer upon layer. You begin to notice faint tremors, pulses through the rock below, like heartbeats in the bones of the earth. Every so often, a small burst of gas escapes through the cracks, releasing bubbles that wobble their way toward the surface, far above. You hover, watching. The magma chamber beneath this point of ocean is ancient, but tonight it stirs in earnest. Its molten rock is mostly basaltic, low in silica, high in iron and magnesium, making it flow more easily than other magmas. This gives the volcano a kind of gentle persistence. Instead of explosive eruptions, it builds, slowly, steadily, without fanfare, and it's building still. You might ask yourself, how can something hidden so far beneath the sea be shaping the world above? But then again, maybe that's true of many things. Just because something's out of sight doesn't mean it's inactive. Some of the most powerful changes begin below the surface, quietly, persistently, without needing to be seen. This volcano isn't just a geologic feature. Tonight, it's a storyteller. Every rise of heat, every plume of gas, every shift in the crust is a line in the story of creation, and you're lucky enough to read it in real time. The sea here is warmer than the waters above. The temperature may reach 400 degrees Celsius inside the vent shafts, but the pressure at this depth keeps it from boiling. It's an invisible balance heat held in check by the sheer weight of the ocean pressing down from above. You reach your hand toward the vent, but not too close. Even at a respectful distance, the warmth tingles across your skin like a whisper, and you wonder what it would be like to live here among these creatures that survive not by sunlight, but by the earth's deep breath. You glance around at the rocky floor. Cracks are spreading. The venting is increasing. And between the swells of heat, you sense it again, that gentle pressure rising from below. The magma is closer now. You imagine it gathering, coiling, preparing to meet the water above. You imagine the instant they touch heat versus cold fire versus sea. But not yet. The volcano is still waking, still gathering its strength. And all around you in the dark, in the heat, in the whispering currents of mineral-rich water, life continues. It doesn't flee, it simply adapts. This place has taught it how. The ocean accepts the fire, and the fire allows life to bloom in return. And perhaps if you listen closely enough, you'll hear the earth say, "This is how I create." One breath, one crack, one quiet rise at a time. The seabed trembles beneath you, a hush passing through the rock, like the breath before a whisper. The currents swirl in tighter spirals, carrying flecks of sediment that shimmer like dust in sunlight. Though everything around you remains calm on the surface below, you can feel it. Change is imminent. The volcano is awakening, but it doesn't leap into action all at once. No, it stirs slowly, deliberately. Like a bear waking from hibernation, it tests its strength with soft rumblings before it roars. The earth is careful with its fire. You hover closer to the rising seafloor, where the crust has begun to fracture. Long, narrow fissures open with an almost shy hesitance. These aren't the jagged chasms of violence you might imagine. They're more like stress lines drawn gently across the ocean's canvas, sketched by shifting tectonic plates. Under the crust, the magma chamber has swollen, pressing upward with a quiet insistence. It doesn't explode. It stretches. It expands like lungs filling with breath, a slow exhalation of pressure and molten rock that presses against the seafloor above. You might be wondering what exactly causes this moment. Why now? The answer is both geological and poetic. Over time, magma builds beneath a weak spot in the Earth's crust, drawn upward by heat pressure and the natural buoyancy of molten rock. It's like warm syrup rising through a cracked pipe, unstoppable once it reaches a critical threshold. Gases trapped in the magma like carbon dioxide and water vapor expand as they rise, creating pressure like a shaken soda bottle. Eventually, something has to give. And here, at the edge of this undersea rise, it begins. The ground bulges, the pressure releases. The first pulse of magma escapes into the sea. It's not explosive, not yet. Instead, it oozes out like thick ink spilled into a vast dark pool. And when that incandescent lava meets cold seawater, a fascinating reaction occurs. You watch as lava flashes into steam, expanding in a blink, creating tiny bursts of energy that fracture the new rock into fragments. The seawater hisses and bubbles but doesn't scream. It reacts like a calm alchemist, transforming magma into a different form of matter. A curious thing happens here. Lava that would flow freely on land hardens almost instantly underwater. The surface of the molten rock cools rapidly, forming a crust, while the interior continues to pulse. This is how pillow lava is formed, rounded bulbous mounds that stack atop one another, like oversized scoops of stone sorbet. You run your hand along one of them. It's warm, not hot, and surprisingly smooth. It still vibrates faintly with the memory of motion. And here, in the gentle chaos of creation, you begin to see patterns, not just rock, but structure. Not just eruptions, but rhythm. This isn't destruction, it's choreography. The volcano isn't angry, it's intentional. Have you ever felt a pressure inside you that wasn't ready to be released all at once? Something creative or emotional that built quietly, only emerging when you had enough space and stillness. That's what this feels like. The magma doesn't fight its way out. It negotiates, shapes, sculpts. It builds what it needs to become. Up above, the ocean swells ever so slightly. Bubbles rise in long threads toward the surface. The steam plume grows taller, the hiss louder. From the surface, someone might think it's a weather event, a squall perhaps, but you know better. This is the moment of change unfolding. The ocean floor begins to rise ever so slightly as more lava emerges, piling gently on itself. The contours shift. What was once a valley is now a soft hill. The seascape is resculpting itself in real time, folding and unfolding like origami. And the volcano, like an artist whose vision is only now becoming clear, continues. Its magma flows through open veins, its pressure vented just enough to avoid catastrophe. But this balance can't last forever. The more it gives, the more it wants to give. You feel a subtle tug through your chest. That same feeling, perhaps, of holding something long enough that it demands release, not in fury, but in need. To let go is not to collapse, it's to create space for something new. And so the volcano continues. One pulse at a time, one breath at a time, one layer closer to breaking the surface of the sea. Now the silence breaks. The pressure that once whispered has gathered into a force that can no longer hide. From below, the magma surges upward, not slowly, now not cautiously, but with resolve. And just like that, the undersea volcano releases its first true eruption. It's not a single burst, but a sequence like a drummer finding rhythm after a long pause. The sea above shudders as lava bursts into the water in wide fountains of fire and gas, the clash of extremes echoing through the deep like the distant roll of thunder inside a dream. From where you float, the view is surreal. A dome of steam balloons up into the sky. The water trembles outward in rings. Below, through the mist, you see firelight dance beneath the waves, flashes of red and gold and white flaring through clouds of ash and salt. It's beautiful, not violent, not terrifying. Beautiful in the way a heartbeat is when you're finally quiet enough to hear it. As the magma meets seawater in volume, now an explosive reaction occurs. You watch it happen. Superheated lava hitting cold salt water generates immense amounts of steam, expanding so quickly it shatters the rock it just formed. It's called phreatomagmatic eruption, a tongue twister of a word for a moment of transformation. Tiny particles of volcanic glass, sharp fine black, scatter outward like ink in a bowl of clear water. They form ash clouds underwater and above, darkening the air in soft waves. You let some of it settle on your palm. It's weightless, almost silky. The youngest rock on Earth. And all around you the seafloor quakes. You might think of this as chaos, but it isn't. It's more like symphony, each release of gas, each upward surge of lava, each crack and hiss, part of a composition the Earth has been perfecting for billions of years. The underwater eruption has now built enough height to reach the shallowest layers of the sea. In some places, the water is only a few dozen meters deep above the growing volcanic cone. The pulses of lava are coming faster now. Steam bursts breach the surface. The sea roils with activity. The island is almost ready to be born. But not without protest. Eruption after eruption, the new rock stacks up. But the ocean is relentless in its resistance. Every inch gained is tested by the weight of waves, the pull of gravity, and the endless work of erosion. The volcano pushes upward, but the sea pushes back. Still the earth insists. More lava, more heat, more shape. The cone sharpens. The summit rises. The seafloor shudders again. And then it happens. You watch as for the first time, lava breaks the ocean's surface. Not as a flame, not as a blast, but as a low hissing crust that crackles under its own heat. The ocean slaps at it, trying to cool and contain. Steam clouds rise like slow fireworks. You hear the crackle, the sound of birth in elemental language. It doesn't look like an island yet. It looks like a blackened crust barely holding itself together. It's misshapen, scorched, breathing sulfur and steam, but it floats, it hardens, it holds. And just like that, the ocean is no longer alone. You hover above, watching the first dry land this part of the sea has ever known. It's small, no bigger than a city block, but it's real. You could walk across it if your feet could bear the heat. You could lie down on it if the steam didn't rise in gentle, scalding plumes. Have you ever seen something emerge into existence before your eyes? Not imagined, not predicted, but formed in real time from nothing you could touch. This is that moment. And perhaps in your own life you felt something similar. A thought that became a plan, a feeling that became a decision. A pressure that once released built something permanent, or at least meaningful. Not everything born in fire survives. But tonight, something has begun. You float higher now through the warm mist rising from this newborn island. The volcano beneath it still breathes, still rumbles, but it has broken through. And that changes everything. You glide through the rising mist, the steam brushing against your skin like warm sighs from the earth itself. Below, the landscape has changed no longer, just bubbling waves and flashes of light, but land. Uneven, steaming, fragile, but undeniably real. The volcano is still working. It doesn't stop when the first rocks breach the surface. No, now the real construction begins. You watch as the volcano lays its layers like a potter shaping a vessel, deliberate, patient, but persistent. Each eruption brings more lava, more tephra, more of the loose volcanic ash and rock fragments that fall in blankets over the new landmass. The cone you saw begin to form beneath the waves is growing taller, broader, darker. The land isn't smooth. It's craggy and jagged, full of cracks that hiss softly. Steam drifts from vents, like the island is exhaling after each exertion. You can almost hear it mutter to itself, "More. Just a little more." It's strange to watch an island being made, not all at once, but one layer at a time. Lava cools in contact with air faster than it does underwater, forming brittle sheets and crusty ridges. But underneath those layers, the heat continues to flow. You can see it through small glowing cracks, the slow-moving orange veins pulsing beneath the surface. The process is quiet, but it's unrelenting. As the magma cools, it contracts, causing the surface to fracture in odd geometric patterns, hexagonal columns, sharp ridges, brittle plates. This columnar basalt, as it's called, looks almost man-made in its perfection. Like the earth had a ruler and a compass, and decided just this once to be precise. You fly slowly along one ridge now, its edge still warm from fresh flow. The texture is like sponge cake made of obsidian, porous black and dusted with flecks of newly cooled ash. Every few minutes the ground shakes slightly. Nothing dramatic, just a soft nudge, a reminder that below the volcano is still at work, building, compacting, lifting. This island is not a single piece of land. It's a puzzle of eruptions, each layer dependent on the ones below, each one laid down with no certainty it will last. Wind and waves are already at work, chipping away at the softest spots. You can hear the hissing surf. Test the shore, then recede, then test again. But the volcano doesn't fear erosion. It knows erosion is part of the process. It adds more, a new layer, a new ridge, a fresh flow that fills yesterday's cracks and builds upon tomorrow's shape. Have you ever built something slowly, step by step, not knowing if it would last? Not just with your hands, but with your time, your attention, your heart. That's what this volcano is doing. There's no finish line, no ceremony, just the steady rhythm of creation. And it's working. From your vantage now, you can see the island growing broader, wider. Once just a jagged strip of steaming crust, it now stretches farther in each direction. Some parts rise 5 meters above the waterline already. Others sink and crumble, only to be replaced by fresh outpourings of lava. The air carries the scent of sulfur and salt, and something else, something earthy like scorched clay. The scent of new land. Birds begin to appear wheeling cautiously overhead. They don't land yet, just circle curious. The sea, too, begins to change. Around the island's edges, the color of the water shifts from deep blue to milky turquoise, clouded by ash and minerals stirred from below. Fish dart through the haze investigating. The ecosystem doesn't wait for a stable home. It adapts as the home is being built. You dip down and touch the surface of the rock. Still warm, still soft in places, but solid enough to hold you. You're standing barefoot on the newest piece of earth. No name, no map marking, no human claim, just stone shaped by fire and pressure and time. It's humbling, isn't it? To realize how much effort the planet makes just to raise one corner of land above the sea. And yet it does. Over and over again. Not for us, just because it can. You step gently across the newborn crust, the rock warm beneath your feet, still exhaling the last of its subterranean heat. The surface crackles quietly, delicate like the shell of a toasted marshmallow, soft enough to flake beneath your toes, but firm enough to carry your weight. For the first time, this patch of earth stands above sea level. It is in every sense a brand new island. It doesn't announce itself with grandeur. There are no flags, no songbirds, no shorelines curved for postcards. Instead, it rises awkwardly, dark, lopsided, and steaming. Like a forgotten thought, suddenly remembered, pushed up from the subconscious depths. You float back above to take it in. The island is modest, about 1 kilometer wide, and perhaps 2 across, depending on where you trace its irregular edges. Its height, just under 30 meters, at its peak. Not quite a mountain, but in this part of the sea, that's monumental. It's already visible on satellite images now, a smudge of dark ink on the wide page of the Pacific. The volcano beneath is still active, still feeding the land with new material. You can feel it underfoot. Slow tremors, not enough to shake you, but enough to remind you that this place is still becoming. Still trying to decide what it wants to be. Around the base of the island, the water seethes gently, not in anger, just in reaction. The sea is rarely passive in the face of change. Waves slap the sides of the young rock, testing its strength. Salt water seeps into cracks, hissing as it meets lingering heat. Erosion, that quiet sculptor, is already at work with her chisels and patience. You notice curious patterns in the ashfall, blanketing the slopes like wind-blown flour arranged in spirals. These deposits are called pyroclastic surges, layered in ribbons across the landscape. The finer grains drift in the wind, brushing across your arms like powdered silk. You ask yourself, is this island permanent? It's a fair question. Many volcanic islands are fleeting. In 2015, one such formation in the South Pacific vanished within months. Others remained for years, even decades, before slipping quietly back beneath the waves. But permanence was never the point. This island was never about staying. It was about arriving. And arrive it has. The birds from earlier have returned. This time one lands. A pale-footed shearwater resting at the edge of a still warm rock. It stands awkwardly pecking at the ground as if inspecting a hotel room before deciding whether to stay the night. Nearby insects skitter across the stone. How they arrived no one can quite say. Perhaps carried on feathers or trapped in sea foam. Life finds a way, especially when invited by warmth and shelter. You smile at the thought. The earth builds, the ocean tests, and life tiptoes and curious as ever. You walk farther along the shoreline, though shoreline is a generous word. There's no sand here yet, only clumped fragments of ash and rock, sharp in places, soft in others. The sea rises and falls, licking at the edges, pulling pieces back as it tries to reclaim what was once its own. The air is cooler now, the steam less frequent. A crust is forming over much of the surface, insulating the inner heat. It's like watching a pie set as it cools. You can almost smell the minerals caramelizing. And still below, the volcano breathes. There's no telling when it will rest. Sometimes these eruptions go on for days, weeks, even months. Other times, a final spurt of lava will seal the vents and bring sudden silence. But for now, the pulses continue, occasional jets of gas, small fountains of glowing rock. You can hear them if you listen closely, a distant glug like a heavy pot on a low boil. Back on the highest ridge of the island, you stand at the summit, the new peak of this unknown land. It's not much higher than the mast of a ship, but from here you can see the curvature of the sea. You turn slowly, taking in the vast blue horizon in every direction. No trees, no soil, no name. And yet there is something sacred about this place. You're standing in the exact spot where the earth reached up through its watery blanket and said, "Here, let there be land." Isn't that something? Isn't it comforting in a quiet way to know that the world is still creating, still sculpting, still surprising itself? You sit now, letting the heat rise through the rock and warm your legs. The ocean breeze curls around you. A cloud of ash drifts softly over the sea. And for a long, silent moment, nothing else matters. The island is here, and so are you. The air shifts gently now, not with the urgency of eruption, but with a softer rhythm like a long exhale after a deep effort. The volcano has worked tirelessly, and the island has grown under its hand. You sit quietly at the ridge, feeling the warmth beneath your palms, like resting against the chest of a sleeping giant. But even in sleep, the earth dreams. Beneath this island, the magma chamber still pulses, still active, still feeding subtle tremors through the crust like muffled drumbeats. Though the lava fountains have slowed, their legacy continues as the island reshapes itself hour by hour. You watch as a small vent opens near the western slope. No violent burst, just a gentle spill, like hot syrup down the side of a bowl. You stand moving carefully across the crust and follow the new lava flow. It slithers along the slope in glowing orange ribbons, cooling as it touches the outer air. It darkens at the edges first, forming a glossy shell, while its heart still flows like honey. You crouch down to observe it, the very definition of motion within stillness. The lava is rich in basalt, a dark, iron-heavy rock common in oceanic crust. This composition allows it to flow smoothly, to spread far before hardening. And that's what this volcano is doing now, expanding outward, broadening the island's base, like a potter widening the bottom of a bowl for balance. Have you ever needed to broaden your own foundation before building something higher? This volcano seems to understand the importance of that. From your perch, you can see the coastline stretch farther than before. What was once a narrow strip is now growing broader rock pressed out into shallow water, forming natural jetties and shelves. Where the lava meets the ocean, clouds of steam rise in slow spirals. They're gentler now, less frantic, like the island is whispering instead of shouting. And in these quiet moments, life begins its slow, inevitable approach. A flock of seabirds settles on a ledge. They poke curiously at the crust, their calls echoing faintly against the blackened stone. You notice tiny green flecks tucked into crevices, algae the first photosynthetic pioneers. Carried here perhaps by wind or wings, they begin the work of biological colonization. It's remarkable, isn't it? The island was molten only hours ago, yet nature wastes no time. Life is like water. It flows toward every opening, every opportunity. Even in the sharpest rock it finds a foothold. You wander along the cooling flow. In places, the lava has hardened into strange textures, ropey twisted folds called pahoho, and jagged broken formations known as AA. You smile at the contrast. One smooth, one rough. One a lullaby, one a thunderclap. Both necessary. Both part of the island's vocabulary now. The volcano knows no single way to express itself. It speaks in many textures. Beneath the surface, hydrothermal activity increases. Heated water enriched with minerals seeps through cracks in the new land, creating fumaroles. Tiny vents where steam hisses up like invisible candles. You pass your hand above one. It's like brushing against the ghost of the planet's breath. A question surfaces: will this island remain? No one knows for sure. Many volcanic islands are ephemeral, washed away by storms, swallowed by waves, or eroded from within. But some persist. Some become sanctuaries. Some, like Iceland or Hawaii, grow into entire ecosystems, given time and space. It all depends on the balance between eruption and erosion, between fire and flood. And tonight, this island holds steady. You pause to feel the ground. It vibrates faintly. Not in alarm, but in presence. The kind of pulse you feel when you know something is alive, even if it doesn't move. A cloud passes overhead. The light shifts. Shadows dance along the rock. In that filtered gray, you realize how ancient this process is. You're standing on the newest land on Earth, made by the oldest forces in existence. And yet, it feels timeless, like it's always been waiting here, just beneath the waves. You glance toward the horizon. A ship sails far off, its silhouette blinking gently. Will it notice the island? Will its captain chart this new formation? Or will the island remain a secret for just a little longer? Either way, it exists, no longer a dream beneath the sea, but something real rising. Night begins to fall now, draping the sea in a velvet hush. The heat from the island still radiates upward, stirring the cooler air into gentle breezes that sweep ash across the surface like sleepy snow. You stand quietly, watching the final pinks and golds of the sunset melt into darker shades, and the newborn island shift from a landscape of fire to one of glowing ember. Even in darkness, the volcano does not sleep. From certain ridgelines, you can still see faint red glows, thin lines where lava continues to ooze, carving its silent paths along cracks and hollows. The warmth beneath your feet hasn't faded. It's merely softened like a coal that chooses not to flame, but to hum with potential. The island has grown again. Now roughly 3 kilometers across its base, has expanded with every flow, each one widening its shoulders into the sea. The high point reaches nearly 40 meters above the waves, now a mound of molten ambition wrapped in volcanic armor. From above, it resembles a teardrop of scorched velvet, cradled in the great blue palm of the Pacific. You walk along the western slope where the lava is younger. Here the rock glistens under the starlight, glassy obsidian sheets, still cooling, still venting warmth. You step gently, carefully. Even the breeze is cautious now, skimming across the ridges like fingertips, searching for balance. The sea speaks louder at night. Not in anger, but with conviction. Waves pound at the outer shorelines, each crash echoing like a heartbeat through the stone. Yet the island holds. For now. You stop by one of the fumaroles, its vent haloed in a faint mist. Steam rises slowly, unbothered by wind. The minerals in the escaping vapor glisten slightly, crusting the edges of the vent in a frost made of sulfur and salt. You run your fingers along the brittle edge, and it crumbles like chalk. This is not just volcanic activity. This is atmospheric transformation. Gases like sulfur, dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, and carbon dioxide are being released, forming their own ecosystem in the air above. Over time, these gases mix with water vapor and ash to create acidic compounds, many of which will return to Earth in rain, reshaping the chemistry of soil that doesn't even exist yet. It's as if the island is preparing the air for what's to come. Have you ever made space for something before? It arrived, cleared a drawer for someone not yet living with you, bought a journal before the first word. The Earth does that too. It lays the groundwork in air and stone before life steps in. And here, just as you think the world has quieted, you see movement. A turtle, ancient and sure-footed, climbs onto the outer rim of the island. How it found its way here, you'll never know. Perhaps driven by instinct or current or something even older. Its shell reflects the starlight. It pauses, digs at the loose ash with one flipper, and rests. A life form claiming space on land, less than a day old. Farther out you see another, a seal this time, sleek and curious. It bobs along the surface, sniffing the air, not approaching yet, just watching. As if to ask, is it safe? Is it real? You smile. Even the animals know when something important is happening. Above, the sky has fully darkened. The stars scatter across it in high-definition clarity, unspoiled by human light. You lie back against the rock, letting its warmth seep into your spine. Above you, constellations glide into view. Orion, Scorpius, the Southern Cross if you're far enough south. And all around you, the soundtrack of a living Earth continues. Hissing steam, distant lava burps, the hush and slap of waves, a rhythm irregular but beautiful. You might ask yourself now, what is this island becoming? Is it a blip? A brief story that will wash away? Or is it the beginning of something that will grow, flourish, and one day carry trees, birds, and people? For now, no one knows. But what is certain in this moment is that the Earth is not finished. You feel it in the ground. You hear it in the waves. You breathe it in the steam. Creation is not a single event. It's a practice. And tonight, you are witness to it. Morning light spills slowly across the horizon, casting long golden threads across the sea. The island, now cooled in parts, looks different in daylight, less fiery, more settled, like someone who's just woken from a vivid dream and is beginning to remember where they are. The steam still rises in places, but it's thinner now, gentler, curling like breath in cool morning air. The wind carries the scent of ash and salt, but underneath it, something else. Earth. That unmistakable mineral scent, warm and primal, like freshly turned soil after rain. The kind of smell that tells you something is preparing to grow. You walk along the southern slope where the lava delta has formed overnight. This broad fan-shaped platform was created when flows of lava met the ocean, repeatedly hardening and collapsing in places before finally stabilizing. It now stretches several hundred meters beyond the main shoreline, wide, jagged, and shining with moisture from morning waves. A curious thing happens here. The heat of the lava has warmed the surrounding shallow water to an almost comfortable bath temperature. Fish, usually wary of such disturbance, have gathered near the thermal edges. You can see flashes of silver anchovy, smelt perhaps even a few reef visitors swimming through mineral-rich shallows, drawn in by the warmth and nutrients stirred up from the seabed. The island isn't just building rock now, it's building relationships. Just off the edge of the delta, where the underwater slope drops away, Steeply volcanic gases still bubble upward, columns of carbon dioxide and sulfur compounds forming underwater vents. These act like tiny chimneys, pumping heat and minerals into the sea. In time, these vents may host entire chemosynthetic communities, bacteria, tube worms, even shrimp that need no sunlight, only the chemistry of Earth's breath. Even now, you can see the water dancing with those bubbles, soft columns of silver rising like applause from the sea floor. And above, something astonishing appears. A thin band of clouds has formed directly above the island, stretching like a halo. These aren't ordinary clouds. They're volcanic vapor clouds made from steam ash particles and gas that has cooled and condensed in the cool ocean air. They're flecked with pale sunlight, blushing slightly pink and gold. It's as if the island is wearing a crown. From up high, the view is breathtaking. You float above the newly born land and see how its shape has shifted overnight. The volcano's caldera, a shallow depression near the center, now steams softly, a reminder of the force below. The outer slopes taper gently into the sea, with sharp black cliffs on one side and wide lava plains on the other. No part of the island is still. It breathes in slow motion. Have you ever watched something grow and realized it was becoming beautiful, almost accidentally? This place, once a plume of fire beneath the ocean, now curves gracefully, its edges softened by waves, its colors shifting with light. What was once all flame and pressure is now contour and calm. You land near a crevice where the rock has cooled enough to split, and inside tiny crystals glint. Obsidian, most likely. Formed when lava cools so quickly, it has no time to crystallize properly. You run your fingers along the edge. It's smooth as glass. Cool to the touch, though it still pulses with the memory of heat. Here and there, sulfur crystals grow in delicate feathers, bright yellow and chalky, like someone painted the rock with powdered sunlight. You notice for the first time a faint buzzing, tiny insects. Midges, maybe, or wind-borne flies, carried here by gusts or clinging to birds, already exploring, already laying claim. And isn't that how life works? It arrives quietly, tests the edges, stays if the warmth is right. You walk farther now, stopping to rest near a spot where the sea has carved a tide pool into the lava shelf. The water inside it is clear and still reflecting the sky. A small crab scuttles across the bottom, red, cautious, but certain of its footing. It pauses as if to acknowledge you, then disappears beneath a ledge. This island is no longer just rock, it's beginning to feel alive. And even as the volcano slows, the process isn't over. New flows may still come, the shape may still change. But for now, something new is unfolding. A land with heat in its belly and sky on its shoulders. And you here to witness it step by step. You return to the island's center, where the land still pulses faintly, as if sighing in its sleep. Beneath the cooled crust, the molten core simmers quietly, no longer roaring, but humming. The caldera has calmed its once blazing heart, now lidded over by a cap of newly cooled basalt. You kneel near the edge, and the ground is warm, the way a kettle stays warm, even after the burners turned off. Stillness here doesn't mean still. The volcano is shifting into a slower rhythm, no longer building with urgency, but with care. It's entering a resting phase, a period geologists call a pause, though no one can say how long it will last. Sometimes these pauses last a few hours, other times weeks or even years. The magma might be gathering pressure deep below, or it might be declining altogether. Either way, the result is this, a silence that isn't quite silent. Have you ever felt that kind of stillness? The kind where everything is held in a gentle waiting breath? That's the feeling here now. The island for the first time rests in its own presence. You walk across the upper ridge, tracing the border between old and new flows. The contrast is clear. Older rock duller, dusted with wind-blown ash, while the fresher flows gleam like cooled ink. Along the way you find ridges formed by lava tubes, tunnels where molten rock once coursed beneath the surface, before draining out, leaving behind long hollow corridors. If you listen closely, you can hear echoes within them. Small drips, wind, the whispers of geology. You pause at the mouth of one tube and imagine crawling inside. What stories would the walls tell? What memories cling to the smooth interior? Above birds wheel in lazy circles, more confident now. A few have begun nesting in crags near the shoreline, their white feathers streaked with volcanic dust. They don't seem to mind. To them, this land is just land, warm, useful, safe enough. The natural cycle of colonization is beginning not with a bang, but with the quiet scuffle of wings and footprints. In the tide pools near the western delta, more crabs have arrived. Sea slugs, too, their gelatinous bodies catching glints of color. Some tide pools are already rich with microscopic plankton swirled in by the tides and nourished by the minerals leaching from the fresh rock. This is how ecosystems begin in puddles. Isn't that humbling that something so grand can begin in something so small? The air has shifted since yesterday. Cooler now. The intense sulfur tang has mellowed into something softer, earthier. You breathe deeply and it feels like inhaling a new day. You notice small cracks forming across the island, natural fractures from cooling rock. These are not signs of collapse, but signs of settling. The island is shrinking slightly as it cools, drawing inward like skin in winter. This thermal contraction causes breaks in the surface, but it also allows gases to escape, relieving pressure. It's like the land is adjusting to its own shape. And in the cracks you see something unexpected: moss. Not lush yet, not green in the way of forests, but faint fuzz clinging to life. Moss is often the first terrestrial colonizer on volcanic rock. It arrives via wind-blown spores, hitching rides on air currents, sometimes traveling hundreds of kilometers before landing. It doesn't need much, just moisture, minerals, and time. Like the earliest settlers of any place, it carves out. A niche softens the land, prepares it for what comes next. You crouch down and touch it gently with one fingertip. Soft, alive, hopeful. You think about how the island will change over the next year. Will more plants come? Will seeds arrive tucked in bird feathers or dropped by storm winds? Will roots find their way into the cracks, splitting stone and weaving soil from nothing? It's too early to say, but already the whispers of a future forest have arrived. You lie back against the cooled lava, its surface now rougher, etched with wind and mist. Overhead the clouds drift slowly, no longer thick with ash. The sun filters through, casting golden lines that slide gently across the stone. There's a quiet beauty in this moment. Not the fire and spectacle of eruption, but the grace of what comes after. The grace of endurance, of soft beginnings, of something choosing without announcement to stay. The afternoon sun stretches long fingers of warmth across the island, wrapping it in soft gold. Where once there was only chaos, explosions of lava, thick smoke and searing heat, there is now a kind of fragile order. You walk slowly, tracing the edge, where land and sea blur into one another, where each wave deposits a thin lace of salt on the darkened stone. And it's here, near the shoreline, that the first beach begins to form. Not a beach in the way we usually picture, no soft white sand or sunbathers sipping coconut water, but a rough black ribbon of volcanic gravel made of pulverized lava fragments ground down by the waves. The pieces are sharp, irregular, but already smoothing with time. You crouch, running your fingers through the coarse grains. They cling to your hand like iron filings, gritty, but oddly pleasant. Isn't it fascinating that the same eruption that once scorched the sea now builds a place gentle enough to walk barefoot someday? This is the work of time and tide, and wave after wave, each crash slowly shaping the shoreline. Erosion, often blamed for destruction, is also a quiet artist. It's creating the contours, polishing the stone, carrying fragments to new places where they will settle and build something softer. The beach, you realize, is like memory, formed from the shattered, reshaped pieces of what came before. You wander down the slope toward a shallow lagoon, forming in a low-lying part of the island. Rain from the previous evening has pooled here, trapped by ridges of cooling rock. Steam still rises faintly, curling above the warm water, giving the place an almost enchanted feel. A few dragonflies dart across the surface. One lands briefly on your knee before lifting away again. You sit at the edge and dip your hand into the lagoon. The water is warm, roughly 40 degrees Celsius, infused with dissolved minerals like iron, magnesium, and silica. Over time, this lagoon may evolve into a thermal spring, one of the many gifts volcanic islands leave behind as their fire subsides. For now, it is just a still steaming bowl of water, cradled in newborn stone. Have you ever felt like you were watching the first draft of a world? Because that's what this feels like. The lines aren't fully drawn yet. The colors are raw. The sounds are few. But it's all there, just waiting to be layered into something whole. You lie back and gaze up at the sky. Clouds drift lazily across the blue canvas, casting wandering shadows over the land. The island's contours shift subtly as light moves ridges, deepening edges, softening. Insects chirp, birds call. Even the sea seems to murmur more gently now, as if acknowledging the change. You close your eyes and imagine what this place might look like in a year. Soil will form slowly from ash and plant decay. Grasses may arrive, first blown in by storm winds or carried in the feathers of seabirds. Then ferns, perhaps, and someday trees. The volcanic rock will crack, roots will reach inward, and the stone so hard now will soften beneath the insistence of life. What was once uninhabitable will become a home. And isn't that one of Earth's most miraculous powers? To take the most violent birth and slowly, patiently turn it into shelter. As you rise and dust ash from your hands, you notice another change. The air smells different, less of sulfur, more of salt and moss. The island's chemical signature is shifting, a sign that volcanic activity is tapering off for now. Scientists monitoring such places often track gas ratios, carbon dioxide to sulfur dioxide, hydrogen chloride to steam, as indicators of a volcano's mood. This one is calming, resting, preparing perhaps for whatever comes next. You walk back toward the central ridge where the wind is stronger. From here, you look out across the sea. The island's silhouette is darker now against the glittering water. Birds are nesting in higher numbers. Even the ocean seems to respect the land a little more, its waves gentler, more rhythmic. You wonder what it will be called. Who will name it? What stories will form? Here will children one day stand where you are and listen to tales of how this island rose from fire and foam. You smile, warmed by the thought. Because this is more than land. It's a promise, a living memory of creation, and a cradle for everything that's still to come. The wind rises slightly now, playful and cool, as it dances across the island's uneven slopes. You close your eyes and listen, not to the roar of an eruption, but to something quieter, more enduring. A symphony of smaller sounds, the rustle of birds in the crags, the whisper of steam escaping through hairline vents, the sigh of the sea smoothing stone. It's hard to believe that just days ago, this was nothing but open ocean and pressure building deep below. And now the island hums with newfound equilibrium. You move toward the island's heart again, the central plateau where heat once erupted skyward. Now that same area pulses softly with warmth, its surface cloaked in hardened lava, cracked and veined like drying mud. Steam wisps curl upward from seams, but there are fewer of them today. The surface temperature has dropped significantly, falling below 100 degrees Celsius, in most regions signaling that the crust is thickening and stabilizing. This means change, not dramatic fiery change, but long, slow tectonic settling. Beneath your feet, the land shifts microscopically. Millimeter by millimeter, the rock rearranges, tightens its grip, becomes something more solid, more permanent. Think of it as the island, exhaling after a great effort. The earth, like you, needs rest to recover. You walk along a narrow ridge that winds like a spine across the landscape. On either side, gulls perch in rows, their feathers catching the sunlight like ribbons of ivory. One flaps lazily and calls out a short, raspy sound that echoes oddly in the open space. You pause. The bird cocks its head at you, curious. Then it lifts off and sails into the sky. A reminder that the island is no longer alone. You begin to see subtle patterns forming in the rock. Cooling cracks, erosion lines, even the first signs of salt crystallization near the coast. These little white patches, delicate and glassy form, where sea spray repeatedly lands on warm rock and evaporates. They sparkle underfoot like ground stars. Isn't it amazing how beauty insists on happening? Even in a place born from fire and chaos, these details emerge quietly, like whispered poetry. The island doesn't demand your awe, it just offers it without asking. At the edge of the eastern slope, you find a tide-carved hollow, now home to a tiny ecosystem. Barnacles have begun to attach themselves to submerged stone. Limpets cling nearby. You crouch to look closer and spot a single sea anemone, its delicate tentacles swaying in the current almost like it's waving hello. Life isn't waiting for perfection. It's building forward from what's available. And maybe you've done that too, taken rough beginnings and made something peaceful, something soft from it. The earth seems to understand this rhythm break, settle, build, repeat. Above you, the clouds begin to shift, forming those pillowy cumulus towers that seem to rise forever. The heat from the island still drifts upward, feeding these clouds with gentle thermals. Eventually, some of that moisture will return as rain, and when it does, it will wash minerals from the rock, begin to carve channels, and shape the very first watercourses of the island. The hydrologic cycle is joining the process now. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation. Another system awakened. You can almost hear the first raindrop forming somewhere above you. Back toward the western edge, a new flock of sooty terns has landed. Their black and white plumage flickers against the volcanic background like ink on parchment. They dig with their beaks into the finer ash, testing it for nesting spots. It's too early for eggs, but not too early to prepare. This is the part where nature quietly lays foundations. No ceremony, no applause, just instinct and patience. You take one more slow walk along the coast, where wave-cut notches are starting to appear in the black cliffs. These small hollows form where the sea, ever persistent, gnaws gently at the stone. Over years, maybe decades, they may become caves. One day, perhaps someone will step into one to take shelter from a storm or write their name on the walls. It's a comforting thought that the island already holds places for future memories. The sky is beginning to color again, soft oranges melting into peach lavender and then dusky blue. You sit on a ledge, letting the breeze wrap around your shoulders like a worn blanket. Below, the sea churns with a deeper rhythm, and above, the stars begin to poke through like holes in velvet. The island rests, so do you. Together you've passed through the fury and the flame into something quieter, something that breathes, not explodes, that welcomes, not warns. And all the while the earth carries on, building, weathering, dreaming in stone. The stars are scattered now, high above the sleeping island, shimmering as if reflecting the scattered sparkles of cooled ash below. The sea, wrapped in moonlight, whispers along the shore in smooth, continuous breaths. It's hard to tell where the edge of the world is. Sky and water blur the island, floating somewhere between waking and dreaming. You walk barefoot now. The rock, though still young, has lost its harsh heat. It's warm, like skin under blankets. The sole of your foot meets its surface with a strange tenderness. This is not ancient earth. This is newborn crust, a surface still deciding what it wants to be. And now the question changes, doesn't it? Not just how did this place come to be, but how long will it last? You find yourself climbing gently toward the highest ridge, following a switchback trail carved by erosion and your own quiet footprints. From this vantage point, the entire island opens before you, a silhouette of curves and craters painted in moonlight. Steam still curls from a few vents, but the energy has softened. The volcano is resting now, not dormant, just slow in its breath. A satellite passes overhead, blinking faintly as it arcs across the night sky. Somewhere someone may be watching this island from above, charting its shape, measuring its emissions, logging its coordinates into the story of the planet. From here, it looks like a drop of ink on a blank page. But even a single drop can change a story. You kneel near a fissure, thin and branching like a spider web. Inside, faint crystals glint, zeolites maybe, or forming quartz. These minerals often emerge after eruptions, their tiny lattices assembling silently over months. They don't rush, they just become. You touch one gently and smile. Growth can be slow, even invisible, and still miraculous. Somewhere in the distance, a whale exhales, a deep, sonorous burst of air that echoes faintly over the waves. Perhaps it's a passing blue whale, or a fin whale drawn closer by the warmth of underwater vents, or simply following migratory paths. Either way, its voice folds into the moment, like a lullaby from the sea itself. And now you notice the tide is changing. The moon, high and bright, pulls gently on the ocean's hem, coaxing waves up the blackened beach. The tide line creeps inward, brushing against rock, filling tide pools, lifting seaweed. These small rhythmic pulses are reminders that the world moves even when it appears still. The island is learning the tides like a child learning breath. Every lap of water shapes it. Every inch of wave teaches it something new. You think about time now, not in hours or days, but in eras. The age of lava, the age of birds, the age of moss, each one layering gently over the last like sheets tucked across a dreaming body. You picture the future ferns unfurling roots, pushing into rock, birds nesting in the arms of windswept shrubs, maybe a lizard scuttling across a stone warmed by sun. Then one day, human footprints, again, cautious explorers, maybe scientists, maybe someone just like you. They'll step where you step now. They'll wonder at the same stars. They'll ask the same soft questions. How did this place come to be? How is it still here? And what stories will grow from its stone? As the wind brushes your hair and the moonlight silvers the sea, you settle into a hollow of rock and close your eyes. The earth is still moving beneath you, but slower now, as if it too is preparing to dream. A hush settles over the island as night deepens, folding everything into a soft, dark blanket sprinkled with stars. The steady pulse of the ocean's waves is like a gentle heartbeat, marking time in a language older than any human story. You find a comfortable spot on a smooth lava ledge, its surface cooled to a soothing warmth, and settle in to watch the quiet world breathe. The island feels different at night, more mysterious, more intimate. Shadows stretch and curl, transforming jagged rocks into gentle shapes. Steam rises in thin, delicate ribbons, glowing faintly under the moon's silver gaze, like sleepy ghosts dancing just beyond sight. You listen closely and realize the island hums its own soft song, a mix of water, lapping wind whispering, and the faint sighs of cooling earth. Your thoughts drift to the creatures already calling this place home. Small crabs hide in the crevices, their tiny legs tapping softly against the stone. The occasional flutter of wings signals the restless nightbirds settling into their nests. And beneath the surface, the sea continues its ancient dance, carrying life minerals and stories from the deep. You wonder about the delicate balance between fire and water creation and destruction. This island was born from a fiery tempest beneath the waves, yet it is now being sculpted by the ocean's patient caress. It is a reminder that even the most violent beginnings can lead to gentle beauty. As you breathe in the cool night air, you consider the future of this place. How will it change over the coming months? Will new plants take root and spread? Will animals find shelter and raise their young here? The island is still very young, but it carries the promise of growth and renewal, a testament to Earth's endless cycle of transformation. You smile softly, feeling a profound sense of peace. The volcano may have built the island, but it is life that will truly make it home. With your eyelids growing heavy and the night wrapping around you like a lullaby, you let yourself drift towards sleep, comforted by the knowledge that the island's story is far from over. Dawn begins as a whisper, a pale glimmer at the edge of the world where sky and ocean meet. The stars begin to fade one by one, their tiny lights surrendering gently to the sun's return. You stir beneath the warmth of your coat, brushing a bit of black sand from your sleeve, and rise slowly from your perch on the rocky ledge. The island wakes with you. Steam no longer billows as it did in the beginning. Instead, it curls in fine tendrils from a few persistent vents like sighs from a sleeping giant. The sky blushes with soft streaks of apricot and lavender. Morning light glances across the black stone, revealing the island's newest patterns, drips and ripples in the cooled lava. Tiny cracks filled with salt. Crystals, footprints of birds etched into ash. The world feels delicate in this light, like it could shatter if touched too quickly. You wander down to the shore again, where the tide has retreated, leaving behind smooth, wet rocks and shimmering puddles. The lagoon is still mirroring the morning sky so perfectly that it feels like a portal to another world. And there within one of the tide pools a splash of green, a single alga growing where yesterday there was only bare stone. Its tendrils wave lazily in the shallow water, catching sunlight in tiny flecks. It's modest, unassuming, but it's also a beginning. The first photosynthetic life turning sunlight into sugar, laying the groundwork for what may one day become a food web. Isn't it amazing that life doesn't wait for perfect conditions? It simply arrives, slowly, quietly, without applause. You watch a group of birds soar overhead. A few dive toward the waves, fishing for their breakfast. Others rest along the rocky cliff face, their feathers dusted with ash. One bird drops something as it flies, a small white object that falls onto the rocks with a soft tap. A seed, carried from elsewhere, caught in the crevice of a feather, now resting here. the island's future forest lying dormant in a shell no larger than a pebble. You close your eyes and imagine it years from now, perhaps decades, sprouting, growing, branching toward the sun. Roots cracking, stone leaves rustling in the breeze, shade falling on warm rock, perhaps even flowers, bees, the buzz of life in full bloom. But for now, it's only potential. And this is enough. You walk the island's curve one last time, circling back to where you first arrived. The shoreline is familiar now, the patterns of wind and wave etched into your memory. The volcano no longer speaks in fire or fury, it speaks in silence, in warmth, in invitation. You take a final breath of sea air, tinged with ash and salt, and something subtly sweet, the beginning scent of life taking hold. Before you go, you leave something behind, a smooth stone warmed in your hand, placed carefully in a fissure near the caldera. A quiet offering, a mark of presence. Then you turn toward the sea, where the boat waits quietly offshore, bobbing in rhythm with the waves. You leave the island slowly, one step at a time, glancing back over your shoulder as it shrinks behind you, not into distance, but into memory. A dream wrapped in basalt and steam, and as the island fades into the haze of the morning sun, you know that it will remain changing, growing, listening, breathing. Now as you lie back wherever you are, maybe wrapped in blankets, maybe listening with headphones beneath a soft ceiling of stars, I want you to breathe a little deeper. Let your shoulders melt. Let your hands unclench. Let your thoughts drift like those gentle seabirds circling above that quiet, steaming land. Imagine the island now still resting beneath its blanket of cloud, its volcanic breath growing ever fainter. Waves lapping against its newborn shore, reshaping it grain by grain. Small creatures exploring its surface. Seeds waiting in silence to bloom. The whole world slowing down, layer by layer, tide by tide. There is something profoundly comforting about the slow processes of nature. They don't hurry, they don't panic, they simply unfold in their own time. And tonight, you are part of that rhythm, just by listening, by resting, by dreaming. You don't need to do anything else. The story of the island continues, and so does your story, softly, gently, without pressure. Let your breath mimic the waves now, in and out, in and out. Let the darkness behind your eyelids become the night sky above that volcanic coast. Let sleep come like tide water, inevitable, slow, and deeply kind. If you've enjoyed this journey, I'd be quietly grateful if you'd give this video a like or tap that subscribe button for more peaceful explorations with the Sleepy Scientist. It helps more than you might imagine. And before you drift off, I'd still love to know, where in the world are you listening? From what time it is there? Leave a comment if you're feeling cozy enough to share. It's always a quiet joy to see this sleepy little community ripple across time zones and continents. Good night, sweet dreams.